Hi, I'm Ryf Quail, and I'm the Managing Director of NRF Retail's Big Show Asia Pacific, and this is Five Things Friday APAC edition.
Ryf, how are you, sir?
I'm good, thank you, Alex. How are you, my friend?
Really good. We're going to have another tight-packed edition of the show. By the way,
Absolutely.
The show's going strength to strength. I can't name names, but we're ranking in the top global 5 of retail podcasts. And depending which market you go, that goes up to top 2. So I'm super happy. I'm super
We're going all right. I've never been this popular in my life. No one ever talks to me, so I'm actually quite excited. Thank you, Alex.
I'm still working on being popular.
I feel very excited now. All right, here we go. All right, I'm going first, aren't I?
You're going first, sir.
All right, cool. Now, today, I'm going to talk a little bit about e-commerce, and we're going to draw some comparisons between Asia Pacific, North America, and Europe. And one of the things I'll talk about with Asia Pacific e-commerce is Asia Pacific e-commerce is still growing freight train quickly. And what I mean by that is we'll see in 2023, APAC e-commerce generated about 7.19 billion US. By 2030, it's set to hit 24 billion.
Wow. We're
looking at compound annual growth rates of somewhere in the 18, 19, 20%, which is absolutely staggering. But it's absolutely mind-blowing, So You're thinking about a market which is one of the biggest retail marketplaces in the world, if not the biggest, and we've got e-commerce growing at close to 20%. But the really interesting thing about that is in 2023 alone, and it continues to happen, it's more and more as people like Vietnam, Indonesia come on stream, 81% of those e-commerce sales are on a mobile device.
Yeah, okay.
And it's mostly through apps. Now that is like... Because as an American retailer or a European retailer coming down to Asia, Asia is now diverged. Asia Pacific is now diverged, and you cannot just turn up and we're going to do the same thing because it ain't going to work. Now, when I look at Europe and the US, obviously we're still talking about big numbers, but compound annual growth rates of 9% in Europe, 9% in America. Now, so 18% of all US sales is e-commerce, but it's only growing at 9% year on year.
Okay. Wow.
And if you look at that in terms of mobile, mobile in the US, which is a fairly good representation, is only 44%. So we've talked about 81 in Asia and 44. Yeah. So you can see now we've got slower e-commerce growth. It's more mature, I'll give you that. Yeah. But there's a real divergence in the method in people at e-commerce undertaking shopping. North America holds about...
I thought it was a done and dusted thing. As in e-commerce was at its maximum, that's it. It's going to be 17% of your revenue.
No. It's still growing. It's still growing quite consistently. So it's still taking a much bigger share. 8-9% a year growth in North America and Europe. Not growing at 19-20% as in Asia Pacific. Yeah. But the method is different. So we're seeing 44% on mobile in the US, 81% on mobile in Asia. And that's because, you look at some of those markets like Vietnam, Indonesia, there weren't terrestrial broadband networks. It was always been mobile-led. So it's the natural device to shop on because there wasn't a home computer. There wasn't a laptop or a desktop sitting in the home. So it's pretty wicked because, that is a real separation between the markets. Yeah, we're still having insane growth, but the markets are going and are now diverging.
Okay, well, staying with that, what is super interesting for me, definitely, is again something that I thought was done in China is delivery, because I assumed, like in India, delivery is done, but China's going into its instant retail price war. By instant, I mean deliveries of 1 hour. You've got the big players such as Alibaba, Meituan, and JD.com. who are pouring billions into 1 hour delivery, which is fantastic for users because they're getting subsidies in their delivery. So they're not footing the bill, that the provider is getting cheaper baskets and faster drop-offs. However, some expect maybe this will lead to actual profit warnings and maybe even a tighter embrace from CCP in terms of unfair advantage over other players in the delivery scene. But I think keeping delivery to sub 1 hour across such a vast nation. It's a shape of things to come. And what we'll do, stay with me, so we
we'll
get
I was going to say.
Sorry, go on, mate.
I was going to say. Sorry to interrupt. I like interrupting. You know that.
Go ahead.
But you know that Beijing is such if you go to Beijing, it's such a massive city. It feels much more spread out than, say, Mumbai.
Yeah.
But I think these profit warnings, I think the Indian lesson is that the consumer was prepared to pay. So if the CCP decide that, we're not subsidizing this anymore and we need to take away this unfair advantage and let everyone flourish and prosper, I think we'll find that the consumer will pay for it in China as well. I think ultimately the consumer will get the early adopters will get the benefit, but it can't be any other way. Ultimately, the economics says the consumer must pay for the convenience.
Yeah, it's interesting. And yeah, I'm not going to. It's interesting, but I can't comment on it because of time. So the other, staying with Chinese, but our other favorite region that we always talk about, Korea. Chinese.
We love Korea.
From September 29th, so Chinese tour group are going to get visa-free travel to Korea. And actually what this has led to is our retailers in Korea, department stores, duty-free operators and convenience chains are now ramping up their staffing and assortment to meet this new cohort. It's not a new cohort, sorry. There is already a massive influx of Chinese tourists in Korea. But now with this, we talked about K-pop and its influence, and one day we will talk about K-pop demon hunters. But
we will. I'm coming.
They're doing so well that this Chinese visa-free group travel is proving to be a big boost for the retail community. And finally,
can I add one thing?
Yeah.
One of the things in the geopolitical context is China, Korea, and Japan have done a trade agreement, which is which has been something that I didn't think that I'd ever see happen. But I think the current context of what's happening in North America has led to this. Yeah. And I think that, there is so much demand for Korean product all around the room, particularly in China. And you only have to look at Japan and say, well, 20% of retail in Japan is retail tourism, right? So when they're all so close together, this is going to be a boon, an absolute boon for Korea. The demand for Korean goods in China is astronomical. Yeah. So this will be amazing.
I'm going to just quickly touch on this and then move on. Yum Brands, who own or the operators of many Western brands, as you can see, such as KFC, they're set to be continued their growth. They're buying back shares. They have 1.5 billion in turnover in 2020, or set to have 1.5 billion turnover in 2025. But the interesting thing here is they're going for smaller formats. They're changing their menus to fit the local taste, because across the region there's such a vast array of tastes and palates. And they're also going for tighter delivery operations. So if you like, changing what they do in the West to meet what's happening in the in the East, leaning on what you were saying, Ryf, in terms of don't think you can turn up and be a fantastic marketing machine and push on that. And the final story that I'd like to share is one that I've been harping on about for a couple of years, where I've sort of raised the flags and said, hey, retailers over here in the West, Chinese retailers have been slowly progressing their technology, progressing their assortment, progressing their operations to be able to expand globally. And so once you've got your operations and technology, and then you move into marketing, you can start expanding. And so Urban Revivo is going hard after Zara and H&M's market share. They are set to open over 200 stores across the overseas. So they've already opened 2 flagship stores in London, but over the next 5 years expect to see over 200 stores in Europe, in the US. And I think this is just the start. So until the regulations change, I expect the retail landscape and the retail high street to continue to expand and change, which may actually be a needed thing in regions such as the UK. Okay, closing with you, Ryf, my friend.
Right. So something really special happened in the region. It's about 10 days ago, actually, or a little bit longer. So at the NRF Big Show this year in APAC, we had FairPrice present their store of tomorrow in an exhibit. And we walked through it. You and I walked through that, Alex, and had a really great experience and met with Dennis Sear, the CIO. But here, they've actually launched the first store. And this is launched in the Punggol digital district in Singapore. So this is the store of tomorrow. And this is mind-blowing. So when you look at this store, this is probably the best implementation of AI in a customer experience that we've ever seen.
Yeah.
And Thomas Kurian, who's a global CEO of Google Cloud, because FairPrice have partnered with Google Cloud, it came out and he basically echoed those sentiments. So that's high praise indeed. So basically what you're talking about here is you're walking into the store, you've got your FairPrice app, you link it to your smart cart. The smart cart's got cameras all over it. There's cameras all in the store. You can go and buy your products. When you get to the shelf where the product is, the price tag flashes at you to tell you that's the one you want.
Oh,
right?
Wow. Yeah,
cool. It's unbelievable. Like it knows you're there, and then it navigates you around the store to support your shopping based on your app. And then makes recommendations. So this is wild. It's unbelievable. So I'm going back to Singapore in November, and we will have a tour of this store in the show next year. And next year, I hope FairPrice will talk about it because I'll probably have 8 months of data to talk about when we get to the show next year. But this is something that is absolutely insane. It's a Gen AI powered supermarket. It's obviously the biggest supermarket group in Singapore. And you can see in this, it's a big deal. Like there's the Special Minister Loh, the government, there's Vipul Chawla, the CEO, Dennis Sear, the CEO in this picture here. It is absolutely amazing. So it's a supermarket experience that no one's ever experienced anywhere in the world.
That's phenomenal.
And I would say to you, if you go to Singapore, there's lots of things to see and do, but go to the Punggol digital district and go shopping because it's wild. It will be absolutely wild, and I'm really excited to go and see this when I'm up there later in the year.
Yeah, you remind me. I need to check whether or not we published the interview that we did on the FairPrice Store of the Future at NRF. I can't remember if we did publish it or not. Yeah. We did an interview there. I remember
that whole sample, and even things like when you go into the store, you can get a BMI done, and it'll actually recommend your whole diet within the supermarket. So it links the assessment of the person to the shopping list of the person, and links it to taste in that. It's wild. It's unbelievable.
Yeah. Well, on that bombshell, I like to say let's bop out on our rocky anthem that we have that's called the Five Things Friday anthem. Until next week, my friend.
Thank you, my friend. Take care. And we might have Laura back next week, hey?
Yeah, hopefully. She's now back in Sydney. So
that'll add some quality, so that's good.
Yeah.